Around 74,000 years ago, on the island of Sumatra, the Earth literally tore itself apart. It wasn't just a volcanic eruption. It was a geological cataclysm of such magnitude that the modern human mind... This was the Mount Toba Supereruption, the largest volcanic event in the last 2 million years.
It released nearly 3,000 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and toxic gas into the atmosphere.
The explosion was so violent that it collapsed the entire mountain into a massive crater, a caldera that today... But the immediate explosion was only the beginning of the horror.
As the plume of ash and sulfur dioxide rippled the stratosphere, it didn't just drift away. It expanded.
It spread across the globe like a suffocating gray shroud.
Within weeks, the sun, the source of all life, simply disappeared.
It was replaced by a dim, sickly copper glow that eventually faded into an absolute, sunless gloom.
This was the day the sky fell. And for the few thousand humans wandering the African savannas and the coastlines of Asia, it was the start of a... Welcome to Origin Vault. Today, we step into the suffocating ash of the Toba Inferno. To understand the scale of what happened next, we have to look at the atmosphere. This wasn't just a bit of smoke. The Toba eruption injected billions of tons of sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere. These particles acted like a giant mirror, bouncing sunlight back into space before it could ever reach the ground.
The global temperature didn't just drop, it plummeted.
Estimates suggest a global cooling of up to 15 degrees Celsius. In the northern latitudes, the world was plunged into an instant ice age. In the tropical regions where our ancestors lived, the lush green landscapes turned brown and brittle within a single season. Without sunlight, photosynthesis slowed to a halt.
The vast forests and grasslands of Africa and Asia began to wither and die under a constant rain of volcanic ash.
When the plants died, the great herds followed. The massive megafauna, the giant elephants, the ancient buffalo, and the gazelles that our ancestors depended on.
Their carcasses were quickly buried under layers of gray soot, leaving the world a silent, monochromatic wasteland.
But it was the rain that was the most terrifying.
The sulfur in the air combined with moisture to create massive clouds of concentrated acid. This was a caustic, stinging rain that poisoned the fresh water sources and burned the skin of every living creature caught in the open. The rivers turned acidic, killing the fish. For the humans living through this, the environment had become an active enemy. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, and absolutely nothing to eat. In the first year of the Toba night, the psychological toll must have been staggering.
Imagine being an early human, a creature that lived in total harmony with the rhythms of the sun and the seasons.
Suddenly, the sun is gone.
The moon and stars are hidden behind a permanent, toxic fog.
The animals you hunt are dying. and the water you drink burns your throat.
In the eyes of our ancestors, this wasn't just a bad season. This was the end of the world. The gods, or whatever forces they believed in, had seemingly decided to extinguish the light forever. As the months stretched into years, the social fabric of the remaining human groups began to disintegrate. When resources are plentiful, humans are social and cooperative. But when you are trapped in a 6-year winter with zero food, the prefrontal cortex starts to lose the battle against the amygdala. This was the era of the genetic bottleneck. They see a moment in time where the entire human population across the whole planet crashed to a few thousand breeding pairs.
The impact left behind a wasteland. For months, the sun was obscured by ash. This bottleneck is not just statistical theory. It is a ghost written into your very cells.
If you compare two chimpanzees from the same forest in Africa, they often have more genetic diversity between them.
Why? Because 74,000 years ago, we were almost deleted.
We are the descendants of the few, the lucky, and the desperate, who managed to breathe through the ash of the Toba Inferno. But how did those few thousand survivors actually do it? When the land was covered in a thick, gray carpet of volcanic glass and the rivers ran with sulfuric acid, where did they turn? The answer, it seems, lay at the edges of the world.
As the inland savannas became death zones, some groups of early humans retreated to the coastlines, specifically in southern Africa.
Archaeological sites like Pinnacle Point offer us a glimpse into these refugia. While the great land mammals were starving to death, these survivors turned to the sea. They began to harvest shellfish, mussels, and snails. This was a radical shift in human behavior. It required a new level of cognitive flexibility. We were no longer just the great hunters of the plains. We became the scavengers of the shore. This period of extreme stress acted as a great filter. It selected for a specific kind of intelligence, the ability to innovate under the threat of total annihilation. Those who couldn't adapt, those who waited for the herds to return, simply vanished into the ash layers. But the Toba night didn't just kill through starvation. The environmental toxins were a silent, invisible executioner. The ash released by Toba was composed of microscopic shards of volcanic glass. To drink the water contaminated by this ash was to ingest high concentrations of fluoride and heavy metals. At Origin Vault, we've analyzed the data on survival mutations.
It's highly probable that during these 6 years of darkness, a rare and random genetic mutation.
If you didn't have it, you didn't see the sun come back.
Every person alive today carries the biological legacy of those who could tolerate the Toba poison.
And then there was the silence. For 6 long years, the world was quiet.
The roaring of lions and the trumpeting of mammoths were replaced by the low, constant hiss of falling ash.
In this silence, the human mind began to change. When the external world is a void, the internal world becomes a fortress.
This may have been the moment when human language and symbolism truly exploded. We needed stories to explain the darkness. We needed rituals to keep the hope of the sun alive.
We needed to believe in something beyond the gray horizon, just to keep our hearts beating in the cold. When the sulfur finally began to settle and the first true rays of sunlight pierced through the haze nearly a decade later,
The world they illuminated was unrecognizable. The megafauna were decimated.
other human species, like the Neanderthals in Europe and the Denisovans in Asia, had also been pushed to their absolute limits. Though they didn't go extinct immediately, the Toba event had shattered their populations, leaving them vulnerable and fragmented. Our ancestors, however, emerged from their coastal refugia with something new. A high-pressure, battle-tested social...
As the skies cleared, this tiny group of survivors, this last thousand, began to move.
They followed the receding ash, spreading out of Africa and into the empty spaces left behind by the dying world.
Today, we look back at the Toba eruption as a tragedy, but in the cold logic of evolution, it was a forge.
It took a wide, diverse range of human groups and hammered them down into a single, unified, and incredibly resilient lineage. We are a homogeneous species because we were once almost nothing.
Every time you look into the eyes of another human being, regardless of their race or where they come from, you are looking at a cousin. You are looking at the descendant of one of those few thousand shadows who refused to lay down in the volcanic dust 74,000 years ago.
We are the children of the Inferno. We are the ones who saw the sky fall and...
The Toba Supereruption still sleeps today under the waters of Lake Toba in Indonesia.
Subscribe to Origin Vault. Explore harsh truths. Leave a comment. I'm the narrator for Origin Vault, and we'll see you in the next exploration of the vanished footprints of humanity.